AITA for exposing my cheating wife after she caught an STD and demanded I pay for her meds? I was 34 when my marriage crumbled in the most absurd and humiliating way possible. My wife, Eliza, 33, and I had been married for 8 years. They were not 8 years of overflowing passion, but of a well-practiced rhythm. We knew by heart who would take out the trash without needing to discuss it. We could end up eating cold pasta standing by the sink at 11 at night because neither of us wanted to cook. We were not fireworks. We were structure. Between the two of us, we brought in about $165,000 a year. We had modest retirement accounts and a 5-year plan to move to a house in the suburbs. She managed the social calendar. I took care of home maintenance. Holidays alternated between our families. We did not keep score. It was a marriage built to last, or so I thought. I work as a project manager at a structural engineering firm. I am organized, deadline-driven, and I do not crack under pressure. Those traits would come in handy later. Eliza worked in marketing. Her talent lay in making questionable decisions look brilliant. I always admired that about her. When she told me about Cameron's wedding in Savannah, yes, a woman named Cameron getting married in Savannah, it did not bother me. She was her college friend, had studied theater, and took 7 years to graduate, but ended up marrying a guy who owned a chain of veterinary clinics in Georgia. Eliza got involved immediately. 2 weeks looking for a dress, group chats about hair and nails, the whole production. It did not bother me. A weekend alone sounded perfect. Ordering takeout, watching whatever I wanted, and maybe finally organizing the garage. For a married man, that is paradise. She flew out Thursday afternoon. I drove her to the airport, lifted her absurdly overpacked suitcase out of the trunk, and kissed her at the curb. She squeezed my hand tighter than usual before walking through the doors. The weekend passed seemingly normally. She sent me pictures of the rehearsal dinner, photos of the ceremony on Saturday, all very classic Southern wedding style. That night, around 11, she video called me from the after party. She was laughing, the music was loud, and she held the phone at an unflattering angle. She told me she missed me. I told her to have fun. She blew me a kiss and hung up. That was the last normal moment of my marriage. Sunday night, she returned looking devastated, as if she had been dragged behind the plane instead of flying inside it. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair haphazardly tied up, moving as if she weighed twice as much. I thought she was just exhausted from 3 days of celebrating, but there was something more than fatigue. It was a stillness that did not belong to exhaustion, it belonged to guilt. She avoided eye contact. When I asked her about the trip, she answered in monosyllables. She went straight to bed without touching the dinner I had made for her. In the following days, instead of returning to normal, her behavior worsened. She was not just distracted by her phone, she guarded it. She would angle the screen away so I could not see it, and answered calls in the bathroom with the exhaust fan on to cover the sound. I caught her deleting conversations twice. When I asked, she said she was freeing up space. I had bought her a new phone myself 2 months earlier. Storage was not an issue. In 8 years, I had never checked her phone or questioned her whereabouts, but my gut was screaming. I have learned that your gut does not lie. It only reveals what your mind does not yet want to accept. I decided to observe for a few more days. Then she got sick, a low-grade fever and body aches. She said she might have caught something on the plane or at the wedding from the recycled air in close contact. She called out of work and camped on the couch with a blanket and her laptop. I brought her soup, took her temperature every few hours, and handled the grocery shopping, laundry, and everything else. Full husband mode. That is what you do when your wife is sick, even if an inner voice is whispering that she does not deserve it. After 4 days with no improvement, I insisted she go to the doctor. She resisted. She claimed it was just a bug, and there was no point. Eliza was the kind of person who would demand an urgent appointment for an ingrown toenail, yet now she was avoiding medical care after almost a week with a fever. I pushed until she agreed. She scheduled an appointment on Thursday with her primary care physician and did not want me to go with her. She said she did not want me missing work for a simple cold. In 8 years, she had never asked me not to attend an appointment. I was there for the mole scare, the sprained ankle, the time she thought she had strep throat. Now she needed privacy for a cold. I went to work, but I could not focus. I sat through a meeting without retaining a single fact. My coworker Mitchell even kicked my chair because, according to him, I was breathing too loudly. Here I am going through a crisis, and he is worried about my breathing. She returned from her appointment pale-faced, hands shaking, carrying a pharmacy bag. She mumbled something about antibiotics for a minor infection and locked herself in the bedroom. At dinner, I tried to ask what kind of infection. She called me controlling and dramatic. The woman who for 8 years sent me 15 texts a day was now saying I was too attentive. I backed off, but I watched everything. Her mood swings were extreme. Affectionate 1 hour, cold the next. She stopped eating dinner with me, went to bed at 8, tensed up when I touched her, and covered it up with a fake yawn. She changed her phone passcode. We had always shared passcodes. When I asked to use hers because mine was dead, she physically pulled it away. Used the laptop. In 8 years, she had never refused to let me borrow it. One night, I walked into the living room and found her on the couch with her phone unlocked in her lap, completely zoned out. She did not hear me come in. I managed to read part of a text I can't stop thinking about before she locked the screen. She looked at me like a cornered animal. Who are you talking to? Cameron, wedding stuff. Too fast, too rehearsed. I nodded and went to the kitchen. I stood in the dark for several minutes, staring into space. I was not paranoid. I knew it then, and I know it now. Days later, she admitted her symptoms were getting worse. Persistent pain, discomfort. She could not fake it anymore. She agreed to go back to the doctor without me pressing her, which confirmed that the situation had gone from, I can ignore it, to, I no longer can. She was gone for 3 hours. She came back with the face of someone who had just confronted the worst truth of their life. She sat at the kitchen table, stared at her hands for a solid minute, and said the words that split my reality in two. I tested positive for an STD. Absolute silence. I could hear the faucet dripping. Which one? Chlamydia, she whispered without looking at me. We had been together 8 years. I had not been with anyone else. My last STD panel, 6 months ago, had come back clean. We both got tested, both clean. The doctor said it could have been dormant. No, we've been tested multiple times. If it had been dormant, it would have shown up sooner. You know that, the doctor knows that. No. She started crying uncontrollably. What happened in Savannah? Nothing. Eliza, what happened in Savannah? I wasn't thinking straight. I barely remember that night. Barely remember? But you do remember hiding your phone for 2 weeks and changing your password. She said she was stressed, that she did not want me to misinterpret anything. Misinterpret what? What was I going to find? Silence. Then she changed the narrative. No, it didn't mean anything. It was a stupid night, and I've felt awful ever since. You feel awful because you caught something, not out of guilt. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fairness now? She raised her voice. You're never here. You work 60 hours a week, and I'm alone. And when someone paid attention to me, I paid for the trip. I drove you to the airport. I kissed you at the curb. Don't tell me nobody paid attention to you. She had no response. But 20 minutes later, she found the nerve for something else. She walked into the kitchen holding the pharmacy bag. These antibiotics weren't cheap. Insurance barely covered anything. We should split the cost. She wanted me to pay half for the treatment of a disease she caught due to her choices. That was what flipped the switch. Not the infidelity. Not the lies. The bill. I did not sleep that night. I did not go to the guest room. I sat in my car, in the building's parking garage, and called a clinic that opened at 7 in the morning. I booked the first appointment. By 7:40, I was getting a full STD panel. I informed the doctor that I had been exposed due to my wife's infidelity. He started me on antibiotics immediately as a precaution and documented everything. Timeline, exposure, treatment, marital status. The divorce was decided before I pulled out of that parking garage. The question was how to protect myself before she rewrote history. A person who lies that easily does not start telling the truth when the pressure is on. They just change their story. When I got to work, I already had a plan. By noon, I was executing it. Eliza texted me twice that morning, cautious messages, testing my reaction. I replied normally and briefly. She had no idea the man she saw the night before no longer existed. The next one would be holding a folder full of evidence. We shared a phone plan. I logged into the provider's portal and downloaded the complete call and text history from the wedding weekend. I found 53 texts and 14 calls between Thursday night and Sunday morning with an unknown number. The timestamps spoke for themselves. Thursday, 11:47 at night, a A 21-minute call. First night in Savannah. She barely knew anyone outside the wedding party. Friday, 1:22 in the morning, 28 minutes. Saturday, 2:34 in the morning, just over 3 hours after our video call, where she said she missed me, a 38-minute call to the same number. She hung up with me, her husband, and hours later was on the phone with the man she was with that night. Sunday morning, there was a flurry of texts before her flight. Short, frantic replies, like when you do not want to say goodbye to someone. She was texting him while packing to come back to me. She intentionally had not saved his number in her contacts. She was careful, but she forgot that the history stays on the provider's server. She was not dumb, just not as smart as she thought. I ran a reverse lookup on the number for $19.99. Result in under a minute. Brandon. Savannah, Georgia, 33 years old. Pharmaceutical sales rep for a regional medical supply company. I checked social media. Eliza's accounts were scrubbed clean, but her friends were not. In tagged photos from the wedding, I found one that gave it away. Eliza in her burgundy dress standing next to a tall guy with a strong jawline and the smile of someone who has never faced consequences. His arm was not over her shoulder, but wrapped around her waist. Tagged, Brandon. His profile was public, shirtless gym selfies, pictures with different women, leaning against an Audi Q7 like it was a trophy. Bio, the grind never stops. 2,600 followers, following 1,900. A man hungry for constant validation. Next, I checked the old iPad we use for recipes and streaming. Eliza had deleted the texts on her phone, but she forgot that the iPad syncs with iCloud. The entire conversation with Brandon was there, intact. Many messages were ridiculous flirting, but one paralyzed me. I can't stop thinking about that night in Savannah. When can I see you again? Sent from my wife's device on the Monday after she returned, while I was in the kitchen making her chicken soup because she had a virus. I saved every piece of evidence. Then I downloaded the statements from our joint credit card for the wedding weekend and reviewed them one by one, line by line. What I found not only confirmed my suspicions, but added new ones. That $385 charge at a downtown Savannah hotel was not part of the group lodging. Eliza's friends had stayed at a rental house near Forsyth Park. She, however, booked a separate room and paid for it with our money. There was also a rideshare trip for $94 from the wedding venue to an address I did not recognize, likely that hotel. There were 2 restaurant charges of $87 and $112 at places that had nothing to do with any wedding event, and a spa charge for $175 the next morning. Just from what I could identify that day, she had spent over $850 of our joint money. And that was just one statement. I sensed the full story would be even worse. Then I called Sloan, Eliza's closest friend, who had also attended the wedding. We kept it casual. I told her Eliza had been acting strange since she got back, and I was worried about her health. Sloan talks a lot. It took no effort to get her spilling details. She was acting so weird that weekend, she said without hesitation. She spent almost the whole time with this guy, Brandon. I think they were together at the reception and the after party. They kept disappearing. She explained that at first she thought they were just getting some fresh air, but people noticed. Some girls started whispering, and someone even commented directly that the situation looked inappropriate. Sloan admitted she thought about saying something to Eliza, but did not want to cause a scene at Cameron's wedding. I thanked her, asked her not to mention our conversation, and hung up. I sat in my office in absolute silence for 20 minutes. My wife had not made a one-off mistake. She spent an entire weekend openly pursuing another man in front of people who knew us, disappearing with him multiple times, having an inappropriate relationship, contracting a disease, coming home to me, and lying about every detail. All while I was making her soup, taking her temperature, and worrying about her like a fool. 2 days later, my STD results came back negative. The preventative antibiotics had worked. The doctor said we acted soon enough that the treatment cleared the exposure before the infection could take hold. Still, he told me to finish the entire course of treatment, and I did. I am not one to stop antibiotics just because I feel fine. That same afternoon, he drafted a formal medical letter documenting everything, confirmed marital exposure to chlamydia, treatment protocol, timeline, and the fact that I had to seek urgent medical intervention due to my wife's actions. Negative result or not, that letter proved I was exposed to a real health risk, and had to be treated for a disease my wife brought back from her trip. I picked it up in person, drove to a copy center, made 3 copies, and locked the original in my desk. That document was worth more than any screenshot. It proved real, documented harm, something a court takes seriously. Eliza forced me to get emergency medical treatment. A clean bill of health did not erase that fact. That night she put on comfortable clothes and settled onto the couch, with that relaxed posture she had been practicing for weeks. I sat across from her with a manila folder. "It's over, and I'm going to explain why." She looked at the folder and then at my face. I saw the color drain from her. I opened it piece by piece. First, the phone records with the timestamps highlighted in red. "This is Brandon's number, a pharmaceutical rep in Savannah. You talked to him for 38 minutes at 2 in the morning the night of the wedding. 3 hours after you video called me saying you missed me." She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then the recovered texts. I read out loud the "I can't stop thinking about that night." Then the tagged photo. Her and him with his arm around her waist. "Where did you get that?" she managed to say. "It doesn't matter where. Multiple people saw you two disappearing together all night at Cameron's wedding, Eliza." Then came the chain of excuses. Privacy violation. He pursued her. She was vulnerable. She did not plan it. She confessed before I found out. I should be grateful. Each justification was weaker than the last, as if she had rehearsed it in the shower where it sounded better. Thursday night. Friday night. The night of the wedding. Everything after midnight. I told her. "That's not a woman being pursued. That's a woman making plans. You told me because a doctor forced you to. Don't try to dress up a dead end as moral superiority." And I added, "I had to get emergency treatment because of you. I walked into a clinic at 7 in the morning and was prescribed antibiotics immediately because my wife tested positive for chlamydia. Do you know what it feels like to explain that to a stranger? I tested negative, Eliza. But that doesn't erase the fact that I had to be there." The silence was absolute. She went pale. She had not considered that her weekend would send her husband to a clinic and leave a direct medical trail back to her. Then came the offer for therapy, that it was just one mistake, speech, and the attempt to guilt-trip me for not fighting for us. I let her speak. I did not interrupt her. "I fought for 2 weeks. I replied when she finished. I made you soup. I took your temperature. I did the laundry. And I worried every night while you were texting the guy who gave you chlamydia. I was fighting for us. You were the one who quit." Nothing but silence. You had 8 years of accumulated trust, and you spent it all in one weekend on a Savannah pharma rep who drives a leased Audi. She flinched. Knowing his name, his job, and even his car completely threw her off. For the first time, she realized she was outmatched. I had done my homework while she was deleting texts and hoping it would all blow over. I told her she had 1 week to move out of the apartment. She tried to refuse, but that very afternoon I had already spoken on the phone with a lawyer. He advised me to immediately file for temporary exclusive possession, given the documented health exposure and the continuous lies. Eliza could stay with her parents or find another place, but the apartment would soon be legally mine. Monday at 9 o'clock sharp, I was sitting in the office of that divorce attorney, a specialist in high-conflict cases and a former prosecutor. $475 an hour. Within the first 10 minutes, I knew he was worth every penny. I laid everything on his desk: phone records, screenshots, financial charges, and the medical letter documenting my confirmed STD exposure and emergency treatment. He reviewed it all expressionlessly and said 5 words: "Your wife handed you this." He laid out the strategy and filed the motion for temporary exclusive possession of the apartment. In our state, infidelity could influence the division of assets. Coupled with the dissipation of funds and the documented medical exposure, we had solid grounds. His paralegal combed through all the cards linked to the account, even the secondary one Eliza used for personal expenses. She found another $887 I had not caught, more ride shares, a clothing purchase the night before the wedding, and 2 ATM withdrawals in downtown Savannah. Total marital funds blown on the affair, $1,740. All documented and traceable. Our money funding her weekend with another man. In less than 10 days, the court granted me exclusive possession of the apartment. Eliza moved back in with her parents. I had Eliza served at her own office. I could have chosen her parents' house, where she would have had the chance to break down in private. But privacy is a privilege you lose when you decide to make yourself the weekend spectacle at someone else's wedding. The process server arrived right after lunch, when the whole floor was buzzing and everyone was at their desks. He asked for Eliza at reception. They pulled her out of a team meeting in a glass-walled conference room and handed her the papers in the hallway, in front of everyone. I know every detail because my friend Gavin's wife, Morgan, still had a friend on that exact floor who witnessed the whole thing. She told me Eliza read the first page, turned completely pale, and had to lean against the wall. A coworker asked if she was okay. She did not answer. That same afternoon, she called me 9 times. They all went straight to voicemail. Later, I listened to just one of the messages, 30 seconds of ragged breathing, followed by one sentence. "You're going to regret this." There was no sadness, only a threat. I saved the audio, noted the time, and added it to the folder. "Thanks for the evidence, Eliza." The next 5 months were a war of attrition, and Eliza played dirty every step of the way. Her lawyer filed everything short of a missing persons report, a bogus emergency restraining order claiming emotional abuse, motions to freeze accounts, to recalculate assets, subpoenas for a therapist she did not even have. None of it succeeded. But every attempt cost me another $1,200 in defense fees. By the time the real threat surfaced, I had already spent $22,000 and was sleeping barely 3 hours a night. That is how a scorched earth divorce works. You do not need to win every motion. You just need the other side to bleed out first. The restraining order hearing was the breaking point. Eliza testified under oath that I had emotionally abused her. My lawyer asked if I had ever restricted her access to her phone, social media, or friends. She answered yes, firmly. He let the silence hang for a few seconds and then presented a piece of evidence. A text from me the night she flew out. "Have an amazing time, love. You deserve it." Sent from the airport departure curb. One single message destroyed her entire accusation in 10 seconds. The judge noted for the record that there was no credible basis for the petition and pointed out significant inconsistencies between her sworn statements and the documented evidence. Her credibility was officially shattered in a way no marketing spin could fix. Brandon tried to reach out once. He left a pathetic voicemail begging me not to drag his name into it. My lawyer replied with a letter warning him he would be subpoenaed if he contacted anyone related to the case again. He did not try again. Then came the part that almost broke me. During discovery, Eliza's lawyer subpoenaed my phone records with Sloan and filed a motion to throw out my entire evidence folder. They called it witness tampering. If the judge agreed, everything would be tossed: phone logs, texts, the financial trail, the medical letter. 5 months of work could vanish with one ruling. One night at 2 a.m, I sat in my car in the garage, seriously considering what it would mean to lose not just the case, but the apartment, the retirement accounts, everything I had built. I was on the verge of calling my lawyer to tell him to settle. Not because she deserved it, but because I was exhausted and the outcome seemed cruel, no matter which way it tilted. I did not call. I went upstairs, made coffee at 3 a.m, and reviewed every screenshot. The Thursday call, the Friday call, the wedding night call 3 hours after she told me she missed me, the pharmacy bag, and the audacity to ask me to split the bill. I stopped feeling tired. The hearing was that Friday. The records from a joint marital account were legally accessible to both parties. Data from a shared household device fell within my rights. A casual call to a mutual friend was not tampering. The judge ruled in our favor on everything. The evidence stayed. That is something nobody tells you about divorce. It is not one dramatic showdown. It is months of small skirmishes, any of which can flip the entire board. Meanwhile, Eliza launched a PR campaign. She did what she does best: sell a more appealing version of reality. She called my mother crying, saying I was destroying our marriage over one mistake, that forgiving her was the logical step, and that my stubbornness was the real problem. My mother listened to her for 3 minutes and replied, "Eliza, you brought a disease into my son's home. Call your own mother right now." Then she called me to ask if I was eating well. That is my mother, never losing focus. Eliza also withdrew $6,200 from our joint account, which we had not fully separated yet. She wrote herself a check claiming she needed it for a deposit and first month's rent. Technically, it was legal because the account was still joint, but my lawyer filed an emergency motion that same day. The judge froze the remaining funds. Those $6,200 were deducted from her share in the final settlement. Still, for 72 hours, seeing that balance turned my stomach. AITA tried every emotional register possible. Tearful apologies, handwritten notes left with the doorman, volcanic anger accusing me of being cruel, love bombing. She even showed up at my office with lunch, acting completely normal. My receptionist turned her away. Then she played the victim on social media. A long post about how someone you trust can destroy your life, and how the people who should support you stay silent. Over 30 likes and sympathetic comments from people who did not know the whole story. Then Cameron commented publicly, "Stop lying. You cheated on your husband at my wedding, and he had to seek medical treatment because of you. Everyone here knows it." The post disappeared in 20 minutes. The screenshot did not. Sloan sent it to me. Gavin's wife shared it with 3 others. In less than a day, the Rayal story circulated through her entire social circle. After that, the sympathy evaporated. Nobody wanted to defend AITA publicly only to get hit with the receipts. Cameron and I kept in touch. It might sound weird, but she was even more pissed off than I was. She confirmed what I suspected about Brandon. He had a pattern. He went after married women because he thought it meant less commitment. "He's a predator in fancy shoes," she told me. She kicked him out of their college group chat without warning. When AITA asked why, Cameron waited 3 days and replied, "You know what you did, and you did it at my wedding. I need space, and I don't think this has an expiration date." My friends reacted bluntly. Lucas called the night he found out and just said, "What do you need?" I answered, "A gym buddy." He said, "Done. We have been working out 3 times a week ever since." Gavin and Morgan brought me food. Morgan, who had been in AITA's spin class for 2 years, looked me in the eye and said, "What she did is unforgivable." That carried weight. AITA tried to get ahead of the narrative by texting her side to the friend group, a mistake he can't forgive. It might have worked if the screenshot of Cameron's comment had not already made the rounds. Screenshots travel faster than any spin. She was booted from the ski trip group chat. At a birthday party, nobody saved her a seat. At brunch, the table cleared out in minutes. She could not beat documented reality with a sad story. At her office, following the process server incident, she was quietly pulled off client accounts and relegated to internal projects. In marketing, that is professional purgatory. No official demotion, no paperwork saying so, but everyone gets the message. 3 months later, she left the company voluntarily. It was about as voluntary as a confession under duress. The final hearing was on a Tuesday in October, or Wednesday, whatever. My lawyer had built what he called a closed circuit. Every piece of evidence organized and linked. Phone records, recovered texts, financial statements showing $1,740 of marital funds spent during the affair weekend. My medical letter confirming exposure and emergency treatment. Brandon's voicemail. The failed restraining order with the judge's denial on record. No gaps. AITA's lawyer tried to argue that the marriage had been deteriorating for years and that the infidelity was a symptom of mutual neglect. He painted me as distant and obsessed with work. My lawyer dismantled that in a minute. He pointed out that I funded the Savannah trip, held steady employment throughout the marriage, shared the household chores, and took care of her when she came back sick with the disease she caught while cheating on me. Then he displayed the text where she wrote to Brandon, "I can't stop thinking about that night," and asked the court if that sounded like emotional neglect or a willing, enthusiastic choice. The argument collapsed. The ruling was overwhelmingly in my favor. In an at-fault state, with no kids and similar incomes, alimony never had a chance. We mediated for 2 sessions, and with nothing left to offer, the settlement ended exactly where my lawyer predicted. I kept the apartment, my retirement accounts, and the bulk of our investments. AITA kept her personal savings, her car, and the full weight of her decision. No spousal support. The court considered the diversion of marital funds for an affair to be a breach of fiduciary duty. AITA signed the final agreement on a Thursday afternoon without looking at anyone. But the real closure came 3 weeks later. I was cleaning the apartment and packing up the last few things she had not taken. Books, shoes, framed photos she had probably left hoping I would call her. I taped up the boxes and left them in the lobby. She arrived Saturday morning. I was walking back from a run when I saw her standing next to the boxes. She looked thinner, her hair was shorter, her clothes different. A life I no longer existed in. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. "There is nothing to talk about, Eliza. I know you probably hate me. I don't hate you. Hate takes energy, and you are not worth the investment anymore." She flinched. Hate still implies importance. Indifference is the final sentence. "I lost everything," she said. "My friends won't answer. Cameron cut me off. I quit my job. I moved back in with my parents. And Brandon." She trailed off. "I knew. Cameron told me." Brandon blocked her a month after the divorce went public. The guy who preferred married women for the lack of drama vanished. He wanted nothing to do with her once she was single and facing real consequences. She traded 8 years of marriage for someone who did not even reply to a text once the novelty wore off. If that is not karma delivering a package requiring a signature, I do not know what is. I nodded, and then she revealed the real reason. "I've been looking at apartments, but the deposits are high. I'm between jobs and my parents' house is not sustainable. I was wondering if you could help me out with the first month, just as a loan." The whole speech beforehand was just the setup. The final punchline was a check. I did not blink. She tensed. "You can afford it. You kept everything. You're confusing what I can do with what I owe you." "I owe you nothing, Eliza. Not a dollar. Not a minute. Not one more second cleaning up what you broke." She picked up the first box. The old version of me would have helped. The new one just watched. For what it's worth, I know I destroyed everything, and I know an apology does not fix it. It does not fix it. She carried the boxes out in 2 trips. I held the door for her, but I did not help. She looked out from her car like there was still something left to say. She did not say anything. She drove off. I went upstairs and made breakfast. That was 3 months ago. The apartment is completely mine. Painted, new sheets. Nothing is where it was before. I work out with Lucas. I cook real food. I have reconnected with friends I neglected during the marriage. I made a stew last week. That would have been the best thing Eliza had ever tasted in her life. Not that she will ever know. Comment. I hope what you take away from this isn't the pain, but the power of choosing yourself. Protecting your own dignity is a non-negotiable part of a healthy life. Setting firm boundaries isn't an act of anger, but an act of profound self-care. Everyone is ultimately accountable for the trust they are given and the choices they make. Your kindness should never come at the expense of your own well-being. Healing isn't about erasing the past, but about building a future where you feel safe and whole again. Sometimes, the most powerful victory is not winning an argument, but choosing your own peace instead. Take the time to rediscover the simple things that make you feel truly like yourself. Always be kind to yourself as you navigate your own path. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.